planet, one God, one voice, one life, one man, one shine my light. Not gonna hop up and do it right, like not gonna come on, do it right, like yeah, that's what I like. Yeah, baby, that's what I like. Black people, my people, black people, my people, my people.
Thanks for listening to Spotify. No, really. You could have listened to the...
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Greeley F. Harris III. I'm the director for the Center for Black Cultural and Student Affairs. And we'd like to welcome you to Speaking Out Loud, Enough is Enough, presented by the Center for Black Cultural and Student Affairs, as well as Student Equity Inclusion Program. So welcome, welcome. We're glad that you all are here. We know we have quite a few folks that are here and also trying to get in. So we're working on that right now with IT. So thank you all for making us aware of that. But yeah, we wanted to just welcome you all to this event. We know it's been a rough couple of weeks for many of us, and difficult times just in our nation in general with COVID-19, but then also with the recent killings of Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd. It's really set our nation ablaze and really just highlighted the institutionalized racism that we're all still dealing with and that we need to deal with. So welcome here, welcome to everyone. And yeah, just wanted to thank you all for being here. So we are going to get started. So with that said, I want to introduce my assistant director. Go ahead, good sir.
Hi everybody, Demarie Parker, assistant director for the CBCSA. It's such a pleasure to see all you all getting on at this time, and we know that this space was just so needed, given the unrest and the treatment and what we've seen of Black America and just around the treatment of folks in general. So thank you all for joining us today. We hope that this forum is a place of healing, a place of discussion, a place for you to decompress, to share your thoughts. We have some things in store for you today, and we hope that this space is just the beginning to start to plant the seed that you all need in the terms of what we can do as a community to come together to show support, to advocate, and to just be there for one another. So thank you all once again for joining us in today, and we hope that this is just the start of many spaces that we can help provide to just deal with what's going on in this world today. I'm gonna pass it back over to Greeley, and he's gonna give you all a little bit about what we're gonna be doing today.
And really quick, not that I need to say this, but of course some Zoom etiquette. If folks could stay muted unless we are in our speaking session, that would be helpful, just so folks can hear and there's not any disruptions. Thank you so much for that. But we are going to have some discussion time where folks will get a chance to talk. So I am actually going to go over the agenda for the program today. But I also wanted to highlight that I believe Dr. Folt and our president, Dr. Carol Folt, and also our VP of Student Affairs, Mr. Winston Chris, are joining us as well. So we thank you to our senior leadership and administrators and just our students, Black faculty and staff that are here today supporting and just wanting to be a part of the discussion and be a part of the community. We really appreciate everyone being here. But in terms of the agenda, so what we have first is, of course, we went over a welcome, and here's our agenda for the day. We will be going over some goals and community agreements for the event, just so you all kind of know where we're coming from, what we are looking to do, and what we are hoping to accomplish today with this community meeting, this town hall. So following that, we'll be having some remarks from some of our amazingly talented Black faculty and staff. We'll give some brief remarks on their personal experiences and professional experiences and just what they've seen in their lifetimes. After that, we will be getting into some discussion sections. So we're going to have some breakout rooms. So we will be pre-assigning folks into breakout rooms where we will have facilitators, both that are campus partners, but also members of our student equity inclusion programs to facilitate some small group discussions. And then in the main room with myself and Demarie, we'll be facilitating a large group discussion. And so we'll go over some discussion questions and really just trying to have that dialogue to talk about what's going on and how it's impacting us and how it's impacting our nation, and also pulling away, some of the, opening some of the Band-Aids of wounds that have been there historically. Following that, we're going to get into our where do we go from here section, where we're going to talk about next steps, a call to action, and we'll get into that later with what that will be in regards to, and then providing some resources to the community, both community resources, but also on-campus resources for our students, because this is for you all, as well as our community members. One thing I will ask is that we are making this a space for our Black students, faculty, and staff to really share their experiences. So for our allies that are here, this, I think, is a great, great opportunity for you all to hear and to be able to listen to what those experiences have been and how these things have impacted us as a community. So it's just something to keep in mind. So yeah, with that said, we'll move on to the next portion of our event.
Right, and just as a brief, we have a number of facilitators that are here today that are going to facilitate those discussions with our SEIP members, and we're looking to do that too. And we just want to have them do a brief introduction of who they are before we move forward into our community agreements. And we can start with Mahogany.
Hi, family. My name is Mahogany Barayo Gilchrist. I am currently in the master's program, which will be completed at the end of this month. And I'll be rolling into the doctorate program with USC Rossier. And I'm excited about the opportunity not only to hear your voices and create a safe space where we can all really openly speak like a family at a family table about our concerns, but also to actually evoke some real change in our communities. So thank you so much for being here.
DeAndre.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is DeAndre. I work for the Office of Residential Education. I'm really happy to be here in this space to share in our collective grief of the things that are going on, not just in the last month, but long-standing things that are impacting the community. So I'm excited to share in this space with all of you.
Angel.
Hello, everyone. My name is Angel Maxwell, pronouns he, him, his. I'm one of the residential college coordinators for the Office for Residential Education. So I'm just glad to be of support and help out our community get through this.
Aiden.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Aiden Agonifer. I'm one of the psychologists at Counseling and Mental Health at Ingeman. I also serve as the multicultural coordinator for our center.
Kendra.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kendra Archer. I'm a licensed clinical social worker at Engelman Student Health Center, and I am also the CBCSA liaison. Welcome, everyone.
Tenzi.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Tensi Taylor, the Associate Director of the USC Black Alumni Association, and I thank you for giving your time to listen, to hear our voices in order to effect change, because it takes every one of us on this call and beyond in order for our society to be in a place that it should be. So thank you, and I look forward to having dialogue with you.
Gary.
Everyone. My name is Gary D. Brown. I am the Assistant Director for the Black Alumni Association. And just to once again reiterate what everyone has said, I want to thank you for having us be a part of this. And thank you to the CBCSA for go ahead and arranging this. Looking forward to hearing what everyone has to say and looking for solutions to some of these problems that have been going on for far too long. So thank you.
Yes, Broderick.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Broderick Leaks. I'm the Director of Counseling and Mental Health Services for USC Student Health. In addition, I'm Clinical Associate Professor of Psychiatry and Behavioral Science at Keck School of Medicine. I'm definitely looking forward to connecting with our family to really talk about what's going on and offer support, affirmation, and resources on how we can move forward together as a community and as a people. Thank you.
Arame.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Arame Enverizade. I am the Director of Admissions as well as Associate Professor of Clinical Occupational Therapy. I'm very excited to be here. I'm also a 3-time alumni, so CBCSA has a very special place in my heart, and I'm very honored to be able to have the ability to be here and thank you for having space for us to do this.
All right, and that would complete our facilitators for our discussions. We'll move forward to our community agreements. And if I did miss someone who's a facilitator, please introduce yourself. I believe that's everyone. All right. I'm gonna hand it back over to Greeley. We're gonna talk about our community agreements.
All right, everyone. So with our community agreement, so one thing, just to reiterate the goal of this event today, this community meeting today, is to really, again, you know, provide a safe space, but an open space for allies too, to hear the stories, the experience, to put a name to the face, to the experience of our Black students, but also our Black faculty and staff. So we just wanted to provide a space for folks to be able to process what's going on, the frustration, the confusion, you know, the disappointment, you know, all those various emotions, the array of emotions that are going on. So with that, please Black don't attack Black. So please, you know, don't attack other folks. We have a diaspora and our experiences do vary, but they are very similar in a lot of areas. So make sure that we're keeping that in mind. When we get into our discussions, please use I statements. And these are kind of typical things, I know. And the other thing is everyone is going to have their own truth. So, you know, everyone's experience may be a little different, but we want to just be active listeners. And one thing I'll add is step up and step back. So if you are in those group discussions, you know, make sure that, you know, we provide space for as many folks to share as possible. Let's talk about the problem, not a person. I remember an old supervisor of mine used to say, Q-tip, quit taking it personal. You know, so if we talk about different things in terms of privilege or oppression or whatnot, don't take those things personal. So we're talking about the problem, not the person. Allow spaces for others to finish their thoughts before responding. Again, we want to practice those aspects of active listening. And then allies listen and support. And I kind of mentioned that earlier. This is a grand opportunity for allies to really hear, again, some of the thoughts, the experiences, the feelings, and just the life that many of us are dealing with, that many of us, you know, some of the things that we have to deal with that others may not have experienced. So just to keep those in mind. So with that said, I believe we are going to move on to our words of wisdom. So we have 4 amazing panelists that are joining us today. Let's see, give me one second. Is Jody Armour with us? I think you might be having some trouble getting in. So let's move on to Dr. Sharoni Little, who is our Associate Dean and Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, as well as a professor, Professor of Clinical Business and Communication. So our 4 panelists are going to be sharing some remarks. So we're excited to hear that. Dr. Little.
Thank you all so much. And I just want to welcome everyone to, as was stated earlier, this community conversation. Thank you, CBCSA and Greeley and Demarie for providing us this platform. And I want to start with each of us taking a moment just to pause in recognition not only of this space, but the lives that have been lost and traumatized around this world due to these conditions. So if we can just take a 10-second pause. Thank you again. So when we start thinking about what brings us here today, sometimes we think that this is episodic, that this is yet another situation, another horrific televised death. And we wonder, why are we all reeling and what will the convening do? And I want to say that we have to recognize that these are not new stories. And we must not begin to focus on how do we come up with strategies, because we're not really lacking strategies. What we need to move into is, where is the lack of will? Where is the lack of action? And most importantly, where's the lack of humanity? Over these past few days, a lot of people have asked me, because a lot of my research is in this area. And I've been working on a book the past 15 years entitled The Perpetual Surveillance of Black Men. looking at why we have had for centuries this condition of controlling human beings merely because of the color of their skin and the deathly lethal consequences of that reality. And you can look for various other reasons, but for me, it comes down to two things: hatred and dehumanization. And I think that is where we have to focus our attention. While it will be very beneficial for us today as we convene and as we strategize, we must at our core remain in community and identify what exactly we are seeking to address. You know, we have the statement, history repeats itself, but history does not repeat itself. Human beings repeat history. It's intentional, cognizant acts. A lot of times we think that it's implicit only or it's unknown, but I think we have to move to a next level and be honest and transparent. That if you can dehumanize someone, if you can take away their humanity, you can justify doing anything to them. And I speak today as a professor, as a researcher, as a scholar, but I speak most importantly as the mother of twin Black sons who are almost 22. And I think about their trajectory of life and how from very early on, they've had experience after experience, and how it pained me as we started to have the unrest that my mother in 1965 had to experience it. Generationally, I experienced it in 1992, and now my son's a third generation. But as I said before, these are not new stories. James Baldwin, Malcolm X, many of our people who have been struggling and fighting this pandemic, not just now, not just this century, but all the way back to slavery. So again, we will discuss today some strategies, but we need to be honest about the fact that we don't lack knowledge of what needs to be done, but why what needs to be done has not been done. And so I encourage us today, and I implore us, that unless we remain in community, unless we acknowledge that hatred and dehumanization has no place in anyone's space, then we will be back at these conversations over and over again. So I'm open to dialogue, I'm open to new partnerships, but most importantly, I hope we are all open to humanity and respecting and genuinely caring for one another. And I'll stop there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Little, for that and for those wonderful remarks. So next we are going to be moving on to Chief John Thomas, who is the Chief of the University of Southern California Department of Public Safety. John, are you with us? Chief Thomas, you with us?
I am greatly, and greetings to everyone. And thanks for the opportunity to be a part of this very important discussion. And I echo what Dr. Little said. There's so much about this that it's a repeated history all over again. You know, you go back 1619 and you fill in the name of the Black man and the Black woman, and you could paint a picture. The uniqueness about and the urgency of now is we have had these incidents at the hand of law enforcement on a regular basis. Technology forces us at this point unequivocally to look at it in its most glaring form. We all witnessed a man brutally murdered at the hands of these officers, or at the knee of these officers. And there is no question about any of the other justifications that oftentimes law enforcement says played into it. There was no split second decision. There was nothing that you could question about any part of this to take away the fact that his humanity and any care and compassion was considered. We watched the life leave his body. And the facts are the causal factors were what we know has occurred throughout our history here. I had a student ask me earlier today, Chief Thomas, what do you think happens from here? I hope what Dr. Little mentioned is where we go from here. And for us to leave this incident and actually think that unless we drive institutional change, and it's not an easy task, as we well know, but it has to be done. We have to be about not only fixing law enforcement, because it has to be fixed. It's way overdue, because this, even in and of itself, goes back to its origin. And its origin is that the very term patrol comes from patrolling and looking for runaway slaves. So that lineage, and that's where it starts. Law enforcement has to own up to that legacy. Law enforcement has to teach to those realities, and we have to begin to recruit, educate, and consistently hold officers to the standards of the community norms. And pardon me for being angry and emotional about this, but for me, first and foremost, as a Black man, I don't get to separate my realities. I've shared with many of you my stories. I grew up in South LA. I'm the son of a single mother on welfare, raising 7 kids. And I didn't have any positive relationships or encounters with anybody in law enforcement. But I thought I could make a difference. And I do believe that it's going to take the collaborative efforts and energies of all of us to ensure that we get this right this time, and not just address the law enforcement piece, because that piece is probably the most glaring and most important piece for us, but the entire criminal justice process that criminalizes these encounters, even those that have nothing to do with any type of enforcement of any law. The criminalization of mental health, the criminalization of homelessness, all of these issues that by virtue of police officers being the default, these are things that officers are not equipped to do, nor should they. But if they do, the accountability, the policies, the education, I'm purposely not saying training, because you train animals. It's about the transformation from that to education, and coupled with the accountability and the community standards, and having the community, not just this community, but our community of color across the nation, that actually have a role in all aspects of what is on the streets as police officers in those communities, from the hiring, the education of those officers, and the ongoing accountability that ensures that these type of incidents don't happen again. There's a lot of anger in what I'm feeling right now, because it's happened too often. And anytime you, as a Black man or Black woman, have these encounters, they don't go away. I can tell you every single encounter I've had, and even some as recent as a year ago, where I was profiled. Because once I take this off and I'm wearing my other clothes, and I'm in neighborhoods where I stand out, or even if I don't stand out, I have had those encounters, and I know I'm treated one way before they know what I do, and another way afterwards. So I welcome the dialogue, but I'm most energized by the prospect of actually deconstructing institutionalized racism that permeates through law enforcement agencies, the entire criminal justice system, but in all aspects of policy procedures and those institutions that we can't escape from. So again, thank you. And I'm just privileged to be a part of these discussions and encouraged by the prospect of fundamental change.
Thank you so much, Chief Thomas. Appreciate those remarks. And I agree with both you and Sharoni. Thank you so much. And last and definitely not least, and I apologize, Jody Armour's having some technical difficulties, so we'll bring him on as soon as he's able to get in. But we have our amazing Executive Director of our Black Alumni Association, Dr. Michelle Turner. Dr. Turner.
I believe you're still muted, Dr. Turner.
Okay. I didn't know you couldn't unmute me. So can you hear me now?
Yep, good to go.
Okay, great. Thank you, Demarie. I wanted to say thank you, of course, for this opportunity. But I also want to be very honest about why we are meeting and speaking in crisis. We have witnessed collectively a public lynching. And, it's hard not to find where you are personally in that, and how shook you must be because you watched the video or you read the transcript that we did post, because it was important, to understand what actually transpired to bring us to this moment. And it is something that I absolutely do take personally. I grew up with stories about what lynching was. My father was threatened with being lynched. He had less than 2 hours to leave school, the school that he was attending in the South, with my mother at the age of 20. So I was born against the backdrop of fearing what lynching must mean, but I never saw it until 60 years later on a video. So, while I was asked probably, to find an example of police brutality to also, speak about and share, I'm not going to do that because, my experiences with it, my husband's experiences with it, my son's, my father's experiences with it are probably a little bit too old to be relative in this moment about what we just saw. However, what we can absolutely speak about is the brutality caused to Black people by racism, period. And I think we need to be very honest and very frank to call it out. We can't use words any other than the brutality of racism in this country, because we've got to dismantle it now. And the way that we do that is not using words like diversity, equity, and inclusion to do that. Those are training mechanisms, but those are not mechanisms that also lead to zero tolerance. And we must be in a place where we start to understand that there have to be consequences, like the kind that Amy Cooper suffered, when people get very arrogant about their privilege or their entitlement aligned or under the umbrella of racism. DE&I doesn't do that without zero tolerance after you've been trained, gotten certified, check the box. The other thing that we have to do in this moment is understand that DE&I is not a substitute for equality, which is really where we should be in this moment, moving forward so that we do, as people of color, Black people in particular, achieve what we need to in our American dream. Malcolm did not speak about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Martin did not march for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Frederick Douglass did not speak about diversity, equity, and inclusion. They spoke about equality, because this is exactly where we need to, assert our moral demand that we are looked upon as human beings in this world, in this country. And what we also need to understand is that the consequences, don't need to just happen in crisis. there are some things that we can do proactively. We can insist that we don't put racist people in jobs that affect us. They don't need to be in schools. They don't need to be on a police force. They don't need to be in banking. They do not need to be our real estate brokers. They don't need to be our senators. They don't need to be our congresspeople. And they certainly don't need to be in the White House. So in this moment today, as we are really grappling with how we go forward, we need to use the words that actually will take us forward. One word being racism. It's not just the death of George Floyd, it is the lynching of George Floyd publicly. It is not just DE&I, it is equality. And what must we do to bring people into this understanding of what that's meant for 401 years and why we cannot allow our children to live that life in the 21st century. So that's all I really have to say at this point. I turn it back over to you or to Jody Cumming. Thank you.
Really quick, I thank you so much, Dr. Turner, and thank you to all our panelists for taking the time to give remarks and share some of your own personal experiences. I really appreciate that. I just wanted to really quick say, because I saw some folks posting resources in the chat, keep it coming. I think that's a great thing to do for us to be as informed as possible. So thank you all for posting those resources, and we're going to highlight some later. I'm going to pass it on to DeMaurier.
All right, everyone. Like we said, it's been a tumultuous time, and I think as we move forward into some of these discussion groups and we get into some of these things, we can start talking about what those actions look like. So at this time, what we're going to do is we're going to allow for everyone to start the breakout discussion rooms, because we want to get right to it, right? We want to make sure that you all have a chance to just be in a space with each other, share thoughts, share knowledge, share resources like you all have been doing in the chat, and most importantly, share some of those stories and experiences and come up with those action plans and those different things that might happen, and just allow you some space to just decompress and do some of those things. So at this time, what we're going to do is split everyone up into breakup rooms. And for those who want to stay in a larger discussion, we will give you that option as well. You will see a script on your screen that'll say, do you want to join the breakout room? If you want to stay in a larger discussion, all you have to do is hit the X button on that and you'll be in the larger discussion. The folks who want to go down into some smaller group discussions, so it will allow that space as well. We'll give you all about 40 minutes to go into those group discussions, and then we'll bring you all back for a continuation of the program at a larger time. And so at this time, we're gonna rock and roll and get you all rolling.
Again, we appreciate you all's patience, because we know, Zoom has its challenges. So thank you all for being patient as we get through the process.
All right. What we'll do is, in lieu of the process, we'll have a little background music going.
Radio. You could have spun some vinyl. You could have played.
Give me 1 second.
Trandilia. Please go ahead.
It's Tralandria. I have a unique perspective because I'm in Dallas, Texas, and Texas is still pretty racist, especially in East Texas. Like within the last 2 centuries, we've still had a gentleman hanging from a tree in East Texas. But I'm currently in the Masters of Criminal Justice program, which of course we speak about racism every day because it's part of our history. But in the criminal justice world, it shows that basically our entire criminal justice system has been built on a foundation of some type of bias from the beginning. Going back to the classical theory, you'll have a theory such as Lombroso. He indicated, his research found that individuals with large jaws and cheekbones, swollen lips, their height, wrinkling, things like that, which in his time was the description of a caveman, they were considered born criminals. And of course, that's all too familiar these days because you have African-American men, and it's assumed by our criminal justice system that, oh, they're going to end up being an offender because they're Black and they have, and I say Black because you have Jamaican Americans, you have all types of Black people in the country. So we have a basis of this biasness as a foundation. So we kind of have to go to the root of the problem before we can progress. Because if not, you're just kind of like sweeping it under the rug, trying it again, sweeping it under the rug, trying it again. And so you're building on a biased foundation. So for me, it's kind of unique. And I feel like we have to get to the root of the problem. And in the criminal justice system, I said in our class yesterday, there has to be some type of vetting process. However, the personality test that's given, a closeted racist, they're going to be able to pass that test because they've always hidden their racism. So you can't identify those off the top based on a test. So over time, they find comfort in their authority, and it leads to situations such as this. So that's my 2 cents on the subject, is eventually we have to find a way to get to the root of our problem.
Thank you so much, Tanderlia. I would love to hear from some more students. Like, how are you feeling? Where's your soul at right now with everything going on? Please, someone type in the comment section, speak, and we'd love to hear from you. And we have other discussion questions as well, but we'd love to hear from folks. All right. Any faculty or staff want to chime in that haven't spoken? I know we're getting focus put into break rooms. And I know for me, here, I guess I'll chime in because I know we're still having folks kind of funnel into various break rooms. But I know for me, it's been a tough week. I felt like I've had, oh, actually, before I get into mine, Francine Wilson, go ahead. Francine, are you still with us? Okay, maybe we might have lost them.
Okay, you needed to unmute me, but
oh, my apologies.
That's okay. I just wanted to say that for me, as somebody that went to segregated schools and was in college during the civil rights movement and was an activist to bring Black studies to white campuses like Wellesley and Harvard and other places, been in Black studies all my life. I just feel tremendously emotional and overwhelmed, and the kinds of things that the university is asking me and other Black faculty make us even more exhausting. Like today, I got something, give me 2 books that people should read and explain why and give me your qualifications for them. And I'm like, wait a minute, why is this my job at this moment? You know, what was the university thinking when they let one of the world's experts on mass incarceration, Ruthie Gilmore, leave, when they let Robin Kelly, one of the world's expert on Black mass movements, when they let Shauna Redmond, who works on mass movements, when they let them leave and then turn their back on an opportunity to set up a program on mass incarceration, bringing a Pulitzer Prize winner to campus. I mean, I'm like, okay, this isn't a problem that's solved by reading. I'm sorry. And the kind of pain and exhaustion that I think all of us are feeling can't be sort of swept under the rug. So, and I too, like Sharoni, am the mother of 2 Black men. My sons are older, but it doesn't make me less worried about them, and it only gives them, they've had 15 years more experience with being stopped by the police for no reason, being arrested, other things happening to them. So I do think this is the moment that I appreciate having community, but I also think we need to work both within the university, as I heard, and to look at how we can be better neighbors. When I got here, the university physically was more open. Now it's physically more closed. There are police, as I understand it, today at the various gates of the university as people are peacefully protesting. This happened after Mike Brown. The students were prohibited from leaving the campus, although many of them did, and joining the march down Figueroa. So I think this is a moment, and I thank you for making it possible for us to talk as a community. I remember when the Black students were arrested after a party and the white students weren't arrested. Chief Thomas, many of your fellow Black police officers on campus said to me that they got arrested, they got stopped as well in their lives, and they didn't understand why the students thought that they were special. That was a real problem for me. And so I think that it is way past time, and I'm grateful for the opportunity for us to add our voices to this important dialogue. So thank you.
Okay, I believe we had Melanie Carver that was going to speak.
Hi, Greeley. Thank you so much for calling on me. I'm a professor now for 10 years with the Rossier School of Education. And prior to that, for 10 years, I taught in Harlem. I'm originally from South Carolina, so I still have a bit of a Southern accent, and I ask you not to hold that against me. But I lived through integration in the South when I was 10, so 50 years ago for me. I had Reverend Jesse Jackson come to my school after Martin Luther King had been killed, telling us we had to work together. You know, we literally at that moment became, I want to say, indoctrinated in the right way. And here we are, probably 2 generations later, because I have grandchildren, and we're still here. Until I heard it today, I didn't realize with the sense of, I did witness a lynching. You know, no wonder I'm so upset. No wonder this nation is so upset. And, you know, we have to create a culture of care, a culture of caring, and we have to work together. I look at that song, "We Are the World." You know, we are the world. The world is behind us on this. And so we have to seize this moment. And the University of Southern California leads the way. I mean, we really do. Race and equity is a big part of our mantra. And so I think we have this wonderful opportunity. I do have on the rose-colored glasses because I have seen a lot of change. Not the kind of change, but I have seen change in my 50 years. And it's going to take a long time, but this is our opportunity to work together and to formulate committees and to formulate plans and to make it part of our discussion. But I know I'm going to bring that culture of care into my classroom, henceforth and so on. I teach technology and media, but that is just as important. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Melanie. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. And thank you to Francille as well. So really quickly, I'd love to hear from some more students. We had some great perspectives from our faculty. What about from our students? Actually, you know, this might be a great opportunity to actually move on to another question. So our next question will be, and some of you got into this, but how have you experienced anti-Blackness within your lifetime? How have you experienced anti-Blackness? So again, if you would like to speak, just type in the comment section, speak, and we will unmute you. But we'd love to hear from you all and love to hear from our students in particular as well with everything that's going on. All right, Lawrence Roll is going to be speaking next. Lawrence Roll.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lawrence Roll. I'm a student, graduate student here, USC, student at Keck and Marshall. You know, it's in a time like this, it's difficult to talk, right? And you know, people really expect you to talk, and it's interesting when people expect you to talk, and you know you should talk personally, but it's difficult to talk, right? I think this is an important time that we acknowledge, and we should recognize that I don't think any feeling that they have with regards to the situation can be incorrect. You know, I think there's no way you can tell somebody how to take this, what's going on. And so in that way, I think we can't really criticize people for how they choose to respond to this. And it's their decision. But I think from the perspective as a Black man, you know, you think of allyship, you think of leading, you think of all these things. I feel like a lot of the people who should be talking in this situation don't really talk, or don't talk as much as we should. And because of that, the message does get across, but it may not be getting across how it always really appropriately should. And so I think in the times of a true strength of being an ally is to be there, to support, to amplify the voice of others, and to respect the opinions of others. I think in this time especially, you know, being an ally means to listen, and it also means to follow, you know, and so that also leaves responsibility on leaders to lead, and I believe that will happen, and that is happening. But I think in this situation, especially from an ally perspective, it's important to follow and listen, and I think that's just a good thing I want to say.
Thank you so much, Lawrence. And for those of you that don't know Lawrence, he is our president of our Black Graduate Student Network. So a great resource in times like this and just in general. So sorry, I outed you right there, Lawrence, but I know you're doing great work with our BGSN. So I just wanted to give you a shout out, and I see some thumbs up. Awesome. So with that said, let's see. So actually someone put in the comment section, oh wait, Lawrence, you want to say something else?
My bad. I was gonna say real
Go
quick. You know, you're in the right spaces where when you have to speak, you're forced to speak. You know, so I appreciate that. I think you have to be in the environments where people around you won't let you not step up. And if you are in those environments, you got to get in those environments. You know, so thank you.
Awesome. So some more of our students, and maybe even some of our Black faculty as well. Again, how have you experienced anti-Blackness? It's a broad question. We just want to hear about your experiences. How have you experienced anti-Blackness? I don't want to go teacher mode and start calling on people. Nah, I'm just kidding. I won't do that. Come on, folks. The people want to hear you. They want to hear your experience.
I see John Kemp with the camera on. You know, we playing hot potato. Have you experienced anti-Blackness? Can you explain, answer for that, Black man?
So again, if you'd like to say something, put speak. Oh, go for it. Go for it.
Okay. Lawrence didn't even give me a second to hear what's going on, but just speaking on how I experienced anti-Blackness, you know, it's crazy too. I'm also in the medical school with Lawrence. I'm my first year, and about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were talking about gang violence in LA. I grew up in Watts, South Central, and in my little group, and I'm talking to my students, and we're talking about and they were asking, "Are you afraid of gang members? Are you afraid of Crips and Bloods? What are they really like?" And I was like, you know, I'm at ease when I'm with them, or I see a gang member, or I see somebody like that in the streets. But who I do get nervous around is the cops. You know, I experience anti-Blackness when I interact with police officers in terms of the words that they use, like boy, and the way they talk. I can tell a lot of times the way they talk to me versus another student or another person of another color when I hang around other friends, or what are you doing here versus it's so much, and it's a lot that goes into all of that. But basically what I do want to say is in terms of in terms of who wants to be an ally, I think part of being an ally is just an understanding. And you can understand that what happened to George Floyd was wrong. And in that moment, you can see that that man getting treated like that was a terrible thing. And you don't have to be Black, and you can condemn that, and you can, it was terrible, without saying that all cops are bad, or without saying white lives doesn't matter, or Hispanic lives doesn't matter. You can, what we saw right there was wrong, and you can condemn that without belittling all the other things that you can believe in, or that you believe in. So I just think it's important to try to understand pain and perspective from another person's lens. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you so much, good sir. Appreciate it. All right. Any other folks, any Black faculty want to share their experiences with anti-Blackness, maybe within your personal, professional? For those that are willing to share. All right, Cameo. Thank you.
You said my name right. All right, cool. My name is Cameo. I am a graduate student at USC through the Department of Biokinesiology and Physical Therapy. So I'm doing my doctorate in physical therapy. I also used to be staff at USC, so I've been, I feel like, on both sides of the experience of being Black at this institution. And I definitely can think of a number of stories where I have experienced anti-Blackness, including my first week working at the university, which was in 2014. And I remember walking through the halls and going to get a cup of water because my office had ran out of water from our little like Sparklets dispenser. And so I remembered that there was a kitchen in the hallway. And so I went to go fill up my own cup with water. And a lady comes in and says, "You're not supposed to be in here." And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I just was coming to get some water." And she kind of like let it go, but then ended up coming to my office, to my boss's office, and saying that, "Hey, you know, like, I just wanted to let you know that this person was taking things that weren't theirs." And my boss had a conversation with me and knew already off the bat, like, what was going on. And I said, "You know, there was no water. I just went to go get water." The university that I had graduated from, that had never been an issue to, you know, go and get water. Anyways, so the lady ended up telling my boss, you know, I just didn't know what she was, and just, I didn't know who she was, and didn't, and, you know, the department has to pay for that. And so my boss takes me over to this lady's office so that we can at least be introduced to each other at this point. And I say, "Hello, my name is Cameo Beard. I recently graduated from Loyola Marymount University, and now I will be doing admissions and student affairs at this office. And I just wanted to introduce myself to you and make sure that, you know, no further misunderstandings happen." And she was like, "Oh, I just didn't know if you worked here or not, just because of the way you look and your hair." And it was very hard for me at that point to keep it together. But I was like, you know, I know that I may seem young, but this is something that I, you know, never would have thought to be an issue. However, in the future, I will keep in mind that I will not go to your area again. And so every time I would see this person in the hallway, there was some sort of odd comment like, "Oh, your hair is so big today." Like, just things that just didn't need to be said, from coworkers touching my hair without asking, hearing them say things like, "I don't see color," hearing them say, "Oh, the radio in my car doesn't work anymore. That's so ghetto." Like, I know that sometimes people don't understand why these things may be hurtful, because this country does have a very good way of hiding the ugly parts of how Black people and how people of color have been oppressed. But also, I think definitely, like Francine Wilson was saying, it is not our jobs as people of color to necessarily educate everyone else. And I think when people can start to look within and have that motivation to see how they can help resolve the problem and see why that history is important to today, that we'll be able to really make larger strides. One of my classmates the other day just said to me, "I wish like we could go back to when I was in like 4th and 5th grade where I didn't see race." And I told her, that's nice that at that time you didn't see it, but you also need to realize you have that privilege to be able to walk into a space and not think about whether you belong there, not think about whether people are perceiving you as a threat, to not think about if people look at you and immediately think you're dumb. I remember being in like 7th grade, sometime in middle school, and being in the MESA program. I don't know if anyone else has heard of the MESA program, but it was like math, engineering, science, achievement. And you just like competed in science, math, engineering related competitions. And I remember working on my balsa wood airplane, and another kid in my classroom, he says, "Why are you here?" And I was like, I'm working on my balsa wood airplane. What do you mean? And he's like, "You shouldn't be here." I'm like, "I'm in the club. I really don't know what you're talking about." And he's like, "Yeah, you just shouldn't be here." And I'm like, "Why? Why shouldn't I be here? Tell me." And he's like, "Because you're Black and you're a girl." Of course, I told my teacher because I was like, this is ridiculous. But that's the kind of stuff that, yeah, when it's overt, it's easy now to see that that's wrong. But I don't think people always see how Black people and people of color are told that in multitudes of ways, and they're not always like that. Just because you're not wearing a Make America Great Again hat or calling people the N-word doesn't mean that you're not racist or that you haven't contributed in any sort of way. So I think like definitely when you're navigating these spaces, think about how the words you say are impacting people. I don't know, just going to class every day now and still having exams, and for teachers to log on and say, "Oh yeah, times are tough, but you guys can get through it," and still trying to make us power through as if it's business as usual is hard. So if you're a professor, remember that to some people this is a tough time, but to other people this is devastating. This is still devastating to see that in 2020 we're still functioning like this. So just do what you can. Take it upon yourself to be active, to learn about how you can help fight against this injustice, because it's been happening, and I don't know why people have just now decided to engage in this. But whatever steam has been keeping you pushing on this topic now, I hope that steam keeps pushing people so that we don't have to continue having these conversations like this, not in this way. And to respond to what Brandon was saying about defunding the police, I think at least for me, like it's not about making it so that police don't exist. It's about making sure that the police that are actually out there enforcing laws are not enforcing them unjustly against us. Our tax-paying dollars go to these people to protect us, yet they're out there murdering us. It's not just killing, it's murder. And if you look at the history of the police, they were put in these areas after slavery. We were segregated. They sent the police to those areas to mess with us, to hang us, to lynch us, to do all of these things. And if you know that history, that's how it feels now. So when you see police and you're not afraid, remember that other people have had different experiences. And like I said, I'm a doctorate student. I did not grow up necessarily in a bad area, but I have had a gun pointed to me by the police in my own home. And they were looking for someone who did not live in my home.
Thank you, Cameo, for sharing that that powerful testimony. And see, those challenges are real. I know we have Lawrence wanted to speak again and make another comment. I just wanted to say really quickly, you know, when you think about institutionalized racism, when you think about also just microaggressions, you know, it's like drops in a bucket. And many of us Black folks are dealing with these drops in a bucket at our jobs, when we go to the store, when we go to the mall, when we go to the park, and eventually our bucket fills up. You know, these are things that we're dealing with on a constant. And then so that, you know, you're dealing with things on an overt level, but you're also dealing with things on a covert level as well. And those things really impact you know, how we see ourselves, how others see us, this, you know, stereotypes within the media, things of that nature. And it's challenging. It's challenging. But let me go ahead and pass it over to Lawrence. Go ahead.
Thank you. Y'all all don't know me, but I tend to speak up anyway. That's kind of how I am. So I'm sorry if I'm speaking a lot, but I'm also not sorry because I feel like I haven't really spoke about all the stuff going on in general. You know, so I feel like you should really take advantage of these opportunities. In terms of speaking or experiencing anti-racism, I didn't even answer the question. You know, and that's I think that's the testament to what we're talking about. I really took it as an opportunity to really speak on what mattered. You know, and that's my fault. I didn't even answer. You know, that's just how deep it is. But in terms of anti-racism, I remember when specifically I was in the 6th grade. I remember coming up the stairs, going to class. You know, basic 6th grader, middle schooler, and I was coming up the stairs, and there were these 2 white students right in front of me. I don't know them. You know, we're just walking to class. So I mean, it's whatever. You just following people. Everybody uses the stairs. And I remember one of them. He turned around, and I'm saying this because I haven't really talked about this in general. But he turned around and he looked at me, and he started laughing. He said, "He's a nigger." And I remember I was in 6th grade, and I remember it happened, and I was just like, I was kind of confused. I was like, first, did he say what I think he said? You know what I'm saying? Like, did that actually happen? And then 2, why did that happen? You know, like, or is there a rationale for that? You know, if you say you walk into the bus, I mean, you walk into the station somewhere, you go upstairs, you don't know the people you see on the stairs. You know what I'm saying? That essentially what happened. He turned around, he saw me, and felt compelled to do that. And he saw me, and he knew me for all of 2 seconds, right? I will say the guy who was next to him said, "Nah, don't do that." You know, I remember that specifically, and I do appreciate that. I do, but it goes to show you, like, what even makes somebody say that? Where is he now? You know what I'm saying? What is he doing now? There's no telling. You know, so I think it is something that we don't address. That's anti-racism. Like I said, I never really talked about that. So we don't address it. Is really what anti-racism is. It's also trying to dilute the voices of others. You know, so I think just saying that actually answers the question. So, you know, thank you for that good question and the space.
For sure. Thank you so much, Lawrence, for speaking out. All right, other folks, anyone else would like to share, or I will move on to our next, actually, I think we'll move on to our next question. The next question is, how have you experienced law enforcement, and how has that impacted you? So if that's police brutality, if it's profiling, things of that nature, what has been your experience with law enforcement, and how has it impacted you? I know some of you all spoke on that a little bit, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about your experiences given the murder of George Floyd. We'd love to hear from you all. So please put in the chat "speak," and we will unmute you so that you can share your experience with the group. And we'd also like to hear from allies too. So yes, would anyone like to address that? All right, Joel Jimenez. Can we unmute Joel for us?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So yeah, I'm Hispanic myself. I'm Mexican, so I'm not Black, but I recall an incident last year, and I've had a couple run-ins with the law. Not like personally, like nothing crazy, but I've been stopped at USC before 2 times. I've been asked, like, do you go to this school? Like, why are you here? By DPS in both instances. So I've had my own experience with that, and I can only imagine like if I were Black, how much more fear I would feel. And the reason I say that is because about a year ago, I got pulled over with my sister because she failed to turn on her headlights in the nighttime. And as the cop was approaching us, I could feel my heart racing because, you know, Hispanics live in this weird, like, gray territory where, of course, we're not going to be receiving the same exact prejudice as Black people do. It's much more disproportionate. but at the same time, we're not treated as white people. So we live in that weird in-between gray phase. And I could feel my heart racing and the anxiety as the officer approached the car. And like, I feel like in that moment, I could only imagine carrying that emotion and feeling constantly. And it was just an eye-opening experience for me personally. And I also have I was a part of the Viterbi Summer Institute for the Center for Engineering Diversity. So I'm connected with Hispanic and Black engineers personally, and they've shared stories similar to the ones that some of the other people have expressed today. And it's just crazy because what you hear is just so disappointing to see as a student still continue, especially even at USC. I even had an experience at USC where I was told, fuck Puerto Ricans, even though I'm Mexican, at a concert by some white kids because they were mad that I was in the front. But just that kind of inherent racism that is still carried and perpetuated by students. And then the whole thing about Black people being asked to touch their hair. I've been told by a lot of my Black friends that that is like a really offensive thing to do. And it's like a thing that's constantly asked. I've seen people ask my friends in front of me that. And it's just disappointing to see that those kind of challenges are still being faced today. And I'm just compassionate and empathetic towards the whole issue. And I'm trying to learn as an ally of what we can do to help better the movement and everything. And that's about it, all I have to say.
All right, thank you so much, Joel. Appreciate it for sharing that. Other thoughts? Again, I'm going to call on our Black faculty, staff, and our students. Other thoughts? All right, I see Danita Peoples, and then we'll get back to you, Lawrence. I see Danita Peoples. Let's and then we'll have Elise Green after Danita. So Danita, let's unmute you. And appreciate everyone's patience. We know, navigating Zoom can be challenging, but we're all here. So we're happy.
I think I keep getting muted, but let me know if you can hear me.
We got you, Danita. Go for it.
Okay, perfect. I just want to speak to two separate occasions. Recently, probably last year, I was driving in a predominantly white area in a predominantly white state. And I clearly had California tags, that were all current. I'm pulling out, and all of a sudden I get, sirens. And so I'm like, what? There's absolutely no reason for me to be getting pulled over right now. The officer approaches my car, and he's aggressive from the very beginning, and asking for my license registration. I'm a lawyer by trade, I also should point out. So I know my rights and I know the law. And so I'm asking him why I'm being pulled over. And he says that my back window was not thoroughly defrosted. So I said, okay, that's a new one. He then proceeded to go back to his squad car for 22 minutes. I was on the side of the road. And so it was a clear, you have no lawful right to pull me over. My back window is fully defrosted. This is just you asserting power and fear, trying to pump fear into someone. And I think that those type of occasions, I'm going to let you off on a warning this time. I know you're from California, but you need to make sure that your window's thoroughly defrosted. Situations where it's just a matter of pumping fear into people's hearts. And I know that that is something that happens on a regular basis. And I want to also speak to anti-Blackness. My name is Danita. I have a hyphen for those of us who went to second grade We know that hyphens are used in names and dashes are used in numerical, for numerical purposes. So when I have had people tell me that my name is not grammatically spelled correctly, as if a name, the Russian names and all the Eastern European names and all of those names with 27 letters are grammatical and they're easy to pronounce. But when they see names that they assume automatically are quote unquote ethnic, because I sit in a room and I'm often the only Black person in my job, sitting in rooms with all white people, making fun of people's names, you know, that is one of the biggest microaggressions and anti-Blackness experiences that I, in every institution that I've worked for, have experienced, including USC. And priding ourselves on being diverse and inclusive and Trojans. And I will say that I've had much worse experiences. And so I am grateful for the experience that I've had thus far at USC, having been there just shortly under 2 years, shortly under 2 years. However, USC is not immune to these incidences and still has a long way to go, in my opinion. And I really appreciate this space. And I feel like the only way that these conversations are, because most of the people who are here because they get it and they understand, and there may be some allies who don't normally understand. And I just hope that the people who really need to hear everyone's voice watch the recording. It just oftentimes they do not. But they will text and they will email and ask you how you're doing. And I've decided I'm no longer saying fine. I'm no longer saying okay. I'm actually going to be truthful to people. I'm not okay, and I encourage other people, if you have the courage to do so, to respond honestly when people ask you that, when white people ask you that, and your white allies ask you that. Let them feel uncomfortable in that. Let them sit on that and take that back to their circles, so that they, if they truly want to be a part of change, understand what it feels like in this moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Danita. Appreciate your perspective, and I appreciate everyone's perspective. We had one last person I did want to give a chance to speak. It's Elise Green, and then we're going to move on to some of our final sessions. So Elise, if we could unmute Elise Green, that'd be amazing.
Hi, my name is Elise. I'm actually a master's of social work student here at USC for the DOARC PEC. I'm actually a VAC student, so I'm really, really thankful for this opportunity because I've never gotten to engage with fellow Black students here at this school, and it's like a really powerful moment for me because just to see you guys face and see people who are like me and think like me is really, really inspiring. And so I'm really emotional. I'm sorry. But just to speak to what you were asking in terms of incidents with police, when I was 18 years old, I just barely learned how to drive. And I ran a red light. So I was wrong. I ran a red light because I didn't know how to drive. So I was right there off of, if you're from LA, you know, Redondo Beach and the 110 freeway. That's where I was at. So I ran the red light, and the guy immediately pulled me over. And when he pulled me over, he was so angry. It was like he was just mad for no reason. I mean, I admit I did something wrong, and but I'll never forget what he told my boyfriend, because my boyfriend came to my rescue, thank God. But he told my boyfriend, he said that lucky for you that you came, because we would have dropped her off in a well-lit area. And to me, that just, like, it still gives me like chills to think of like what would have happened to me if he didn't come that day. And so as a Black woman who's raising a Black child, like it's just really important for us to have these conversations together, and of course with allies who do hold the power and who hold the privilege to make the change. Because as we know, as Black people, you know, we experience subjugation and prejudice and racism. But yeah, I'm just thankful for this opportunity where I can share with you guys and see you guys' face, and just know that I'm not alone. Because for me, actually, I've been questioning, like, what led me to come to USC? And for me, the answer was I went to Cal State Dominguez in Carson. And truthfully, the reason why I came to USC is because I wanted to go to a prestigious school where I could have that name attached to my name. But the truth of the matter is if I went to Cal State Dominguez in Carson, what would that have done for me? You know, so in a real sense, it made me wonder, like, okay, Elise, what was the real reason why you chose USC as opposed to CSUN or Dominguez? But it also spoke to what I think Lawrence was saying earlier. Yesterday, I was in class, and to be honest, I'm the only Black person in that class, and it's a VAC class, so we're not really able to have that face-to-face interaction. And so I was kind of forced to speak because it was like, I felt like all eyes were on me, like as the Black girl in the class, like, oh, you know, she has to say something. And so I was able to say how I was feeling in that moment, but it's just a much different experience to share with people who are like you and come from similar backgrounds as you. So I just wanted to share that, and thank you. That's all I have.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Elise, for sharing. You will be our last person to share from our discussion. I appreciate you all being here. I know Obama's speaking right now, and we know many of us want to hear that as well. But I appreciate you all being here, having difficult conversation, because that's how change happens. And so just want to take a moment to thank our facilitators, thank everyone that participated in the breakout rooms. And I hope there was some great discussion and some new perspectives that were seen and just eyes open, right? And I think all of us have jobs of being seed planners. But we're going to move on to our next section, and it's called the Where Do We Go From Here? So where do we go from here? You know, we've shared some stories, we shared some frustrations, we've shared experiences, and they're all valid. But I think we all have a job to do, right? And first and foremost, I like what someone said, for folks of color, for Black folks, it's not our job to always educate everybody. I want to put the onus on the individual and also on the other communities for us to educate yourself, right? Educate yourself. There are articles that we can read. There are books that can be shared. There are videos that can, you could view and watch. There are podcasts you could listen to really educate yourself on the experience of others, to educate yourself on the challenges, and also on the historic framework of institutional racism and how that cycle of oppression kind of keeps going. You know, that stereotype, the prejudice, the discrimination, and then the institutionalized racism, and how that impacts all of us. So think about what are ways you could educate yourself to be an ally. And that brings me to my next point, which is allyship and standing together. Solidarity is everything, and we cannot be bystanders. We just can't. You know, if you're sitting around, if you're not correcting that, everyone, I don't know about you all's family, it seems like everyone has a racist uncle. And if you're not going to correct that person in that family that is making those comments and challenge yourself, we're not saying damage your relationship, but to challenge folks, again, be that seed planner. That's true allyship when no folks of color are around, or, if it's, a bunch of men in the room saying something derogatory towards women or whatever it is. But, for Black folks, we need our allies to show up, not just when we're around, but when we're not around. Because you all have power, and we want you all to use that power to, uplift our community. So we just had a few hashtags that we wanted to float out there. And one was fighting on still. We say fight on. but we're fighting on still, you know, because this is still an issue. It's been an issue since 1619, and it's still an issue. And I do think that there's been some small victories, but we still need to fight on. You know, and then also Black Trojans matter, right? We're here. We're trying to increase our numbers, and we want to make sure that, you know, the community is, and I love that, heal on. I love that. That could be a great hashtag as well. Heal on, fight on still. Black Trojans matter, but just a few hashtags for you all to think about, to follow, and we'll get into some more resources. On the next piece of our where to go from here, if we could go to the next slide, organize with a purpose. So as we're organizing, you know, make sure we're learning from our ancestors, you know, mistakes made, victories made, review history. And, you know, with history, I think you always have to look at it with a framework of, or I should say a lens of who wrote it and why, you know, because sometimes history doesn't always tell you the full story, right? But review history, review strategy. And for those of you that are wanting to protest, and I definitely advocate for that, to use your voice, do it safely, do it safely. There's always a few bad eggs, and even organizations that want to derail the narrative, change the narrative, derail the whole purpose of a protest. A protest is a disruption with a purpose. So, you know, make sure you're protesting safely, get involved with policy change, follow credible social media accounts. You know, there's a lot of, you know, misinformation that could pop out there. So just, you know, make sure you're, you know, fact checking and things of that nature. And thank you all for posting some amazing resources and books in the chats. I see BAA's posting stuff. Our partners from Engelman, Dr. Reyes is posting things from Engelman. Thank you so much. And I believe we're going to move on to our next section.
Right. And a little bit more to what we want to say is uplift your fellow kings and queens. Right now is a time where people are going through it, y'all. You know what I'm saying? Show some love, uplift them, encourage them, make them, educate your loved ones and your youth that we talked about. Challenge, respectfully challenge. Change the media narrative, right? A lot of us, we know that Black Tuesday happened yesterday, and that was a thing to change and send some different narratives and to stop, you know, posting things personally, is to start sharing the information and pushing things out to switch that algorithm and some things that happened the other day. And then support Black-owned businesses, period. And I had to say period because we have to start investing in our communities. There has to be representation. There has to be investment. There has to do some things like that. And everything counts. Everything counts. So make sure that when we get out there that we support some of those communities and make sure that we are standing with them, not just socially, not just there, but economically, that we are standing with those communities as well, because that is important in some of the things that we are doing. Our next segment is going to be our call to action. And at this point in time, we want to ask you all to type into the chat. We shared a little bit about what we can do from here, where things are going. What commitment are you going to make moving forward? And we put that quote next to it, saying commitment, because the commitment is long standing, right? It's staying true to what you said long after the mood it said it has passed. And we have to make a commitment to do that. And oftentimes we reference Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, we reference Huey P. Newton, Bobby Seale, and the Black Panther Party. They were committed to the cause. Martin Luther King marched for 318 days on a bus boycott. That is over a year, y'all. That is actually it's 365 days. I'm a little bit over 365 days. It was over a year that they marched and did the bus boycott, about a year and 2 months. And that is a commitment that they had made to a cause. So as you all continue to do that, make those commitments and let it be a long lasting commitment so folks can see the change that needs to happen. And I'm gonna transfer it back to Greeley. We have an exercise that we want to go through before we go to our next segment of the program that relates to that commitment.
I was muted. Thank you. So really quick, before we go into our next little exercise, take a few minutes and just type into the chat, what is your commitment? I'd love to see what folks are going to say. What is going to be your personal commitment to advocacy? And you know, I really, you know, appreciate you all taking the time, but go ahead and take a moment to type those in, and then we'll get into our next section. And if you all don't mind, I'm going to just read a couple. Advocating for legislation that holds police accountable. I'm committed to not staying silent anymore. Continue to advocate for the education of others. Support Black-owned businesses. We love that, especially during COVID. Black-owned businesses were hit very tough during COVID-19. Research and advocacy. Wow, there's some great things in here. And you all, we're going to save this chat. So don't worry. We're also going to send out our slide deck. So I appreciate you all putting your emails in earlier. But wow, some powerful commitments from you all. Keep it going. All right. So we're going to, as you keep typing those commitments in, but we're actually going to pause for a second. I believe Jody Armour
yes.
is with us.
Yes.
And if you all know Jody Armour, you should know Jody Armour if you don't know Jody Armour. And if you haven't taken one of his classes, I implore you to. But he is the Roy P. Crocker Professor of Law, doing some great things. And he's joined us to give us some remarks briefly, and then we'll get into our final activities. Jody, thank you so much for being here. It means a lot.
It's great to be here. And tell me where you'd like me to launch in, because there's so much going on today. So it's such a momentous time. Where would you like me to enter?
Jody, just to talk about your experience, we just actually finished up some discussion, both small breakout room sessions as well as a large breakout room. And we were talking about anti-Blackness. We were talking about experiences with law enforcement. So we'd love to hear just some of your experiences and just your perspectives in those, in that rationale, and also with just what's going on. We'd love to hear from your perspective.
Yeah, I was writing about this back in the 90s. Some of my early scholarship were about these very issues. And here we are in 2020, June, and ain't nothing changed but what year it is. You know, we have the same persistent, pervasive pattern of a lack of sufficient care and concern for Black lives. You know, we had the 92 riots or uprising, rebellion, revolt, however you want to characterize them. How people interpret and label that urban conflagration often tells you a lot more about the observer than what's observed. But at the end of the day, we didn't seem to progress from that experience. Then we have the Black Lives Matter movement. Then its heyday is still very much alive, still making a difference, still hitting hard. But it was rolling hard too in 2013, 14, 15, and 16. We had a procession of hashtags, you know, from Trayvon Martin, which kicked it off, to Michael Brown, to Walter Scott, Sandra Bland, and on, Tamir Rice, little 12-year-old Tamir up in Cleveland. And in each incident, you had the same kind of set of responses. It was like, wash, rinse, repeat. Wash, rinse, repeat. Here we go. We're going to convene a commission. We're going to hold some hearings. People are going to come to the hearings and vent, the town halls and vent. Then we're going to sit back and say, okay, now we know what we're going to do. We have some interventions. And we're going to have body cameras. We're going to put body cameras on police. We're going to give them implicit bias training. We're going to give them community policing training, de-escalation training. They did all of that stuff back then. And in fact, the Minneapolis, Minnesota Police Department was one of the foremost police departments in the country in implementing all of that kind of stuff. And look at what difference it made. You had the officer with his knee on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes while his 3 comrades stood idly by And all of that training, all those body cameras, all of that brouhaha didn't seem to amount to a hill of beans in preventing this racial injustice Groundhog Day that we seem to keep waking up to. And so at the end of the day, I think, you know, what we've realized is that all of those technological fixes and all of those tinkerings with policy, they aren't going to make a difference. They haven't made the difference. They are, you know, some of them are incrementally helpful, some of them may be necessary, but they're not sufficient. The reason they're not sufficient is they don't get at the underlying problem. And the underlying problem is this country's original sin. You know, we were so-called founded in liberty and democracy, but somebody like me was chattel property. I would have been chattel property at for some of the founders of this country. For Thomas Jefferson and George Washington, they would have been selling me and bartering me and taking my kids. That, you know, that's what this country is rooted in. And then after that, we had a cataclysmic race war that was 600,000 dead Americans. It was violence, not non-violence, that led to a change in that. And then we had another 100 years of Jim Crow, and it was more violence, not non-violence, that led to a change in that. You know, Martin Luther King used to stage demonstrations that he knew would trigger violence. You know, people are always pointing pious fingers at protesters and telling them to stay away from violence, but that's all this country seems to understand. When Colin Kaepernick went down on one knee, non-violently protesting police brutality, the president called him an SOB. You know, he can't find a team now. So there's no right way to protest. The only thing that seems to get this country's attention is violence. You know, sad to say, and I don't like to say that, you know, but that's the reality. So, you know, here we are, and if we don't deal with the underlying problem, none of the other fixes are going to matter. And that underlying problem is that Black lives don't matter. The whole point of the Black Lives Matter mantra is not that white lives don't matter, Asian lives don't matter, Latino lives don't matter. The point of it is Black lives matter also. Black lives matter too. That's always been the point. And they don't. When you saw those people standing down, many of y'all too young to remember this, and when Hurricane Katrina hit Louisiana, you have Black people standing in the 9th Ward on rooftops with water up to their neck, literally. And a day went by, 2 days went by, 3 days went by, 4 days. You have Sean Penn rowing up there, handing out fresh water, because 4 days in, Black people were still standing there with water up to their neck, and FEMA couldn't get its act together to help them. But after 9/11, when those planes ran into those buildings in 9/11, there was a panic of empathy for those victims, and they helped them. They got it done because those lives mattered. But Black lives haven't historically in this country. You walk through Skid Row here in LA, which is the fiercest expression of structural violence in America, the largest homeless encampment in America. And you look to your left and your right, and what do you see? 75% of the faces are Black. That's what you see. You go into the prisons where I take my students into San Quentin, you take them into the jails, and you see the same demographics in those prisons and jails that you see on Skid Row. When you look at who's dying from COVID-19, disproportionately Black lives. The faces at the bottom of the well in this country are Black. They have been since its inception. They continue to be, and unless and until that is addressed, none of these other interventions are going to matter. And that's all I got to say.
Wow, thank you so much, Jody. Powerful words. You know, if you all can do your reaction with the hand clap or the thumbs up. Powerful words from all of our panelists and also from our students, faculty, and staff. We need what we've been trying is not working. We need more change. So with that said, we're going to move into our last bit of call of action. I hope this works. You also, please be patient Again, thank you, Professor Armour. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Sometimes truth hurts, right? And that's okay. And when you're uncomfortable, when you're challenged, that's how change happens. When folks are uncomfortable. If you're comfortable, no change will happen. Simple as that. So what I'm going to do is share my screen. Okay. So what I'm going to ask you all to do. Let's see. Demoria, did you want to share your screen, or you want me to do it?
Go ahead, Greed. I'll let you. You can handle it. I'll let you roll.
Okay, wonderful.
I'm gonna stop share.
Okay, sorry about that, y'all. So I'm gonna share my screen here. Hopefully, you all could see everything. So this is a whiteboard. So I'm gonna put in a text, and I want you all. We talked about commitment earlier, correct? We talked about commitment and what are you going to do. So I want you all to type your name in saying, what are you going to do? So this will be your opportunity to put your name, to write your name. So I'm going to tell you all how to do it. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. I apologize. Maria, can you, sorry, y'all, so can you all see that? Can I get a thumbs up or something? Can you all see that? I stand in solidarity with Black America, right? So what I would like you all to do is go to annotate. So go to view options, go to annotate, and then you're going to hit text, and then just type your name in that you are standing in solidarity with us. And we're going to take a picture of this and post this. But this is your time to all those commitments that you said in the chats of what you're going to commit to do. Thank you, Demoria. But take a moment and just type in your name, first and last name, or your first name, whatever you're comfortable with. And we're going to take a picture of this and we're going to post it.
Great. If you can clear your first script.
Okay. Thank you.
And the intention, y'all, is what we're going to do is we're going to take this statement, we're going to take these names. This screen is going to get filled. And what we want to do is we want to take a screenshot of this image and take a screenshot, and we want to share this on social media. We want to tag the hashtags. We want to share this thing out to let people know that the USC community here, stands in solidarity with all these issues that's going on in the country, and that we are fighting on, and we're still going to fight on, and we're going to do our part in this injustice to make sure that we are striving and reaching towards equality for all our Black community. And that is unapologetically there, because we know that it's going to take a stance. You're going to have to take a stance on this. To be silent is a choice. And we decide to take a stand.
Okay, I am technology retarded in some ways because I cannot do this.
So what you will do is go to that shared screen. At the top of your screen should be a view options button.
Okay, thank you.
Click that view options button, and then you're going to see annotate. And when you hit the annotate button, hit text. There will be a text. Hit the text, and you'll be able to click anywhere on that screen and type in your name.
Thank you.
No problem.
And I'm going to have to ask you to not use ableist language, like the R word, next time. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry I didn't hear that. Someone messaged me privately if there's an issue. Thank you. All right. A few more minutes. A few more minutes. A few more minutes for folks to get in there. Wow, this is powerful, y'all. Thank you all for doing this. This is amazing. And just so you all know, we had over 300 folks on this Zoom, which is amazing. And you know, unfortunately, we reached our capacity was 300, so we probably had more than 300 that wanted to participate. So. Okay, one more minute, folks. Get those names on there. And then we are going to make sure that we take a picture of this. One more minute. All right, good people. So I'm going to take a screenshot, and for my colleagues, please take a screenshot as well. And folks, take pictures, please, and screenshots. All right, and we are going to move on to our last section. Thank you all so much for signing this. This was amazing to see you all, put your name down as a commitment. So I'm going to stop the share now. Hopefully everyone is able to get their name in. And Demoria, I'm going to leave it to you so we can move on to our last section.
Yes. So this is our second to last section. So what we wanted to do was we went through and we shared about the experiences. Y'all had some words of wisdom from our esteemed faculty and staff members. And we also talked about where do we go from here and have some small discussions. And then we said there's some way that you all can educate yourselves, sign petitions, get in. But then we know you're asking, like, where is the resources? Where are the links? Where are the things that we can do and utilize? So this right here is a list of some of the things that we have. So if you all can screenshot that, we'll share it out later. We'll send it out. These are just some links, things to get you started. And our SEIP team has put together a longer comprehensive list, which is a Google Doc and a Google Sheet of ways in which you can help support the Black community and what's going on in terms of education, educating allies, educating others, in terms of yourself, petitions, funding, Black businesses, and all those various resources. And we'll definitely send that out in the chat as well, but you're more than welcome to take a screenshot. But we didn't want to leave you all with a call to action, with a where to go from here, without giving you some resources and just places where you can go and gather and do that as well. And we know that a lot of you all have shared resources in that chat. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this chat, we're going to save this chat, we're going to go through this and comb through that chat and compile those resources and add them to the more comprehensive list. And we'll make sure that everyone who was on this call that dropped their email in this chat at any point in time during this forum will be able to come back and get that email with a list of resources and compile those as well. So we didn't want to leave you all hanging and say, where are the links, where are the resources, where are the educational tools, where are the things that we can do to kind of get going. And as we continue to do that, I'm going to pass this over to some of our folks, Broderick and Kendra, who's going to talk about some follow-up opportunities that they are going to be hosting and having as well for folks to tune in.
Hello, Broderick. Would you like to go first? Broderick, Dr. Broderick Leaks, are you still on this call? Okay. All right, so I guess I'll just get started. My name is Kendra Archer. I'm a licensed clinical social worker at USC Student Health, Counseling and Mental Health. And I just want to thank the facilitators for being here. Greedley and Demarie, this has been a beautiful event for us all to come together as allies and, you know, Black people, Black Trojans in the USC community. So I just wanted to, you know, remind you all about all of the resources that we have on campus at Engelman at the Counseling and Mental Health Center. You know, you can, everyone can, you know, contact us if you're interested in mental health resources. And I'm going to share my screen with you all just to provide you all with the contact information for our center. Let's see if I can do that. Okay. Can you all see my screen? Greedley, can you
see it. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank
You're
you
good.
so
Thank you,
much.
Kendra.
Okay, so I'm gonna. So this is the number to the Counseling Center. You can, USC Counseling and Mental Health. As I mentioned before, if you're interested in learning more about mental health services for yourself, as a student, you can, give us a call or schedule an initial appointment with us online. We will offer assistance with referrals in the community as well. If you're more comfortable with utilizing mental health services off campus, we can assist with that. We have groups as well. So if you check out our website, we have a comprehensive list of all the groups that are current and happening now at our center. Want to mention another really important resource. We have Let's Talk, which are 30-minute informal drop-in sessions. Now we're operating virtually. So you can feel free to check out studenthealth.usc and sign up for those sessions. It's a 30-minute drop-in session, informal. It's an opportunity to get a chance to speak with a counselor about any mental health issues that you may be facing, or if you have any questions, or if you'd like to consult. It is not therapy, but it can be a really important introduction to learning more about mental health services. And as the CBCSA liaison, I've also partnered with CBCSA to offer a special Let's Talk for CBCSA affiliated students and communities on Thursdays at 3 o'clock. And you can also feel free to sign up for that online at studenthealth.usc. So some more other important resources in the community. Actress Taraji P Henson has started a foundation to address mental health needs in the Black community, particularly during COVID. We know that our communities have been disproportionately affected by COVID-19, and she has offered 5 free virtual sessions. So feel free to check that out on the website to sign up. And the resources are available as long as the finances are currently available. So it's a first come, first served basis. So feel free to check that out. I've also included some other resources. Definitely feel free. I think it's important. There's a lot of voices that are active right now on social media, mental health therapists that are offering free services, a lot of interesting work is happening. Some websites that have been really helpful for me as a therapist, as well as recommending to the clients I work with. Therapy for Black Girls, they have a nationwide directory for finding a Black therapist, podcasts for important self-care strategies, such as Black women's mental health issues, relationships, healing from trauma, family relationships. Some other important resources, the National Queer Trans Therapists of Color Network. So I'm going to include all of this in a Google Doc, which I will be sending out to everyone. So it's going to list some books and podcasts and important social media pages to follow of Black mental health professionals who are in the community, providing some really good tips and strategies on how to care for yourself during this time. And I think it's important to check those out. Okay.
Thank you, Kendra. Yeah. And just, I know we're nearing our end. I just want to kind of share a couple of things. One, this has been a very trying time, a very draining time for us, very traumatic time. And so it's very important that we take care of ourselves, that we be really intentional about self-care and connection to make it through. And so, from a therapy or just support standpoint, counseling and mental health services is definitely here for the students. The Let's Talk drop-in that Kendra mentioned is a great resource for students regardless of where you are. in the country right now. Because of licensing laws, we can only provide therapy to people physically located in California, but the Let's Talk is open to any student. Right now, there might be a block that you can't, if you're out of, if you didn't pay the summer health fee, you might not be able to register for one of those sessions or one of those drop-ins online, but you can just call the center until we can work out some of the tech glitches, and then everyone will be able to register online. So feel free to reach out for those drop-ins. If you are in California and a student and you've are registered for classes, definitely reach out to us. We have many therapists available to provide any support that you may need, just to, as we're dealing with the other pandemic that we've been dealing with historically in our country. And then the last thing I'll say, I think we've all been hit hard by this. It's been draining. I've been more emotional than normal. I had to get off Zoom during a meeting the other day just to kind of shed some tears and come back because it's just been hitting us at our core. And so, like I said, let's make sure there's two primary goals that we have, when we're dealing with this. One is just self-protection and making sure that we're good. And then the other, once we can protect ourselves, and that may mean pausing social media, it may mean pausing the news, it may mean getting away from some of the 24-hour news cycle just to kind of ground yourself so you can get back and engage. It also means making connections with people who have your back, who love you, who get it, who understand the experience and you can connect with and grab support from. And then once we can get some of the self-protection down, then we can move into the self-enhancement zone. Then we can move into the thriving zone where we can actually go out and do the work that's required of all of us to do. And so this has been powerful. I love the quote someone put in the chat that I just got stronger and didn't even go to the gym. And I think these forums, these activities, these connections strengthen us. They give us a foundation that we can launch from to continue to fight on, to continue to do the work that we're called to do. So thank you, CBCSA, for creating the space for us. Thank you, faculty and students and staff, for just being present and here. Thank you to our allies for fighting the good fight, and for all of us of African descent who live this reality, and people of color. We will overcome. We just got to keep pushing and take to heed some of the things that were mentioned earlier. So I appreciate you all. Love you all. You are loved. You are affirmed. You are valuable. And we will keep this thing going. Thank you.
Yes. So as we get to the close of our event, I do want to urge people, drop your emails in this chat right now if you want to receive some of those resources. We will, like I said, be saving this chat and send the resources up to you all promptly. That is our promise to you, to be able to send some of those things out. And please reach out to us. Our contact information is on the screen. And I want to leave you all with a couple of these quotes that's on this wall so that you understand that the fight is still alive. We're still fighting on, and we need you all to make sure that you take that self-care, rejuvenate yourself, and be able to come back to do this fight, because this is going to be a long fight. I'm not going to front and say this is going to be a short fight. This is going to be it's going to be a hard fight, but we have the power. We have what we need. It's time to organize. It's time to do the good work that we do. And we know that everybody has a role in organizing and making sure that we get the humane, equality, and to be treated as we need to be treated as people. So we are not 3/5. We're not chattel. That we are human beings in this fight, and everyone is needed. So in the words of Alice Walker, the most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any, and we have all the power. It's time to organize. It's time to get together. It's time to do this change. And we have a strong community here as a Trojan community, as USC community, as a Black Trojan community, and just overall, we stand in solidarity. And we want to thank you all for coming out to this forum. And we know that this is just a seed that is going to be planted today, and that this is one of the many seeds that's going to be planted, and that we know there's going to be plenty of opportunities for us to host other forums and spaces like this to do the good work that we know we want to do on behalf of our people.
And really quick, I just want to echo the same sentiments as DeMaurier and Broderick and Kendra and just all. But I want to say a big thank you to all that facilitated from around campus, from a bunch of different campus departments, HSC up until Res Ed, I mean, and on and on. Thank you, everyone, to our SEIP partners and colleagues, our ride or dies. We appreciate you all being a part of this process. To our panelists, just dropping wisdom and knowledge and experience. To our students, faculty, and staff for being open and making yourself vulnerable to share those stories, which is hard to do sometimes because you're reliving it again. So I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of the Center for Black Cultural and Student Affairs. This is a seed, you know, and there'll be more to come, but this is the beginning, and thank you all for making this special, and you know, come check us out, as DeMaurier was saying, and we just appreciate you all, and thank you all for spending this time with us. Take care, everyone, and have a very, very blessed week, and be safe, and still fight on.
You matter. Black lives matter. Let's make this happen, y'all.
Thank you, guys. Fight on.
Fight on.
Fight on.